Do you have any hard facts that can connect Obama with wanting this extreme takeover versus just him just being what most people think, he just doesn't know what's going on?
Well, the pattern of behavior, I mean, if I made a mistake or I had a leaning in a particular direction, that might be one thing. But if you see time after time after time, the decisions being made so that the Sunnis always seem to be the ones that are uplifted.
Yeah.
But the Shia are the ones that are getting bombed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when people are trying to say that somehow Obama is treating everyone equally, no, he's not. You got to look at the differences between the Wahhabi, the Sunni, the Shia, and the Subud. I mean, there's another little twist in his background. So you have to look at who he is. And
his family came from the Sunnis. Yeah, his family supported the Sunnis. They were Sunnis.
Yeah, he's a Sunni. He's a Sunni. In fact, he's of the subcult called Subud, which is in Indonesia. Started in 1941, I believe. Subarka was the name of the guy who started it. And by the way, it's interesting that on the application for a passport for young Mr. Sotoro, guess what name appears printed, by Stanley Ann Dunham, the supposed mother. There is no genetic link, by the way, between the two. But
that's what I heard.
Yeah, there is none. We know that because, the DNA was taken off Obama from a water glass by an agency.
What do you think about that? That's great. I have not even mentioned that to anybody because that almost sounds too wild. Well, it all sounds wild.
But it's so easily done. I mean, here I hand you a water glass, you touch it, we take it, we analyze it, we've got your DNA on it. So now we know who you're related to. All the strands. Now it takes a long time to do it, to process it, but we can do it.
So somebody took Obama's water glass, took a DNA sample. He didn't even know, and found out that he can't even be related to his supposed mother.
He's not related to Stanley Ann Dunham. He's not related to his supposed grandparents, the commies in Hawaii, either.
So what do you take from that?
Well, I take it that he's obviously a creation of somebody. But it ain't the ones we've been told.
And there's no records of him, really.
Not really. And when you look at, there are other people though who are supposedly, for example, his half brothers. You look at Mark, who lives in Shenzhen, China, and then you look at Malik, who's a bundler for the Brotherhood itself.
Yeah, Malik. I want you to talk more about him, but go ahead.
Well, everyone seems to know about Malik, but you know the most important one is Mark, the one that nobody knows about.
Okay.
Mark Obama Okoth Desanjo, who is from Kenya. And by the way, we know for sure that Mr. Obama was born in Mombasa, Kenya. That's where he was born, not in Hawaii. And you know that Loretta Fuddy, I mean, the only reason she's no longer with us is because she was about to meet with a reporter, and that reporter had authority to give her $1 million if she would breach and bring the news. And she was walking away from the Subud cult that she was a member of. She was the head of the North American arm of that Muslim group.
So who is this woman that?
Loretta Fuddy was in charge of the medicine for the medical director for Hawaii. She was brought in a year before to deal with the birth certificate issue.
Okay,
and she's the one who fraudulently created, with help, the birth certificate that Joe Arpaio and Mike Zullo have shown to be a fraud.
And so she wound up dead.
She ends up dead.
Okay. Some other. There's so much to talk about. Tom Clancy and two men that were his friends wound up dead. Yeah. The other two, their car blew up. Is that my understanding?
Andrew Breitbart, a famous name in journalism. Andrew was poisoned, the same poison that killed Tom Clancy. And here's the thing. Witnesses to when Andrew dropped like a sack of potatoes, that's what they described it as, when they got to him, his face was bright red. Now, the neurotoxin that's used to kill people, within seconds, it causes them to drop just like that, a sack of potatoes, straight down, and it turns your face bright red. So what happened? 5-day delayed in doing the autopsy for Breitbart. Why the 5 days? Because the latent sugars in the blood absorb that neurotoxin, and you can't find it. When you do the blood study, the toxicology on the blood, nothing. Okay. Nothing shows. So the same thing happened with Tom Clancy. 5-day delay.
And didn't the man who performed the autopsy, didn't he wind up dead too? Did I hear that right?
Well, no, the coroner actually was instructed to delay any of the workup on the body.
Okay.
But the young guy, Cormier, the lab assistant, drew blood right away, which he wasn't supposed to do because that starts the process. Had drawn the blood, and of course in the blood is the evidence of the neurotoxin. 2 days later, he committed suicide. Now, I've talked to his sister and his brother, and both of them say there's no way that he would commit suicide. I mean, he was looking forward to things. He was talking about doing things. This isn't the pattern of somebody who's about to commit suicide. He wasn't bringing his life to closure. He was looking forward to a future which was stolen from him when he was murdered.
Okay. So I mostly know what you're talking about, but for the people who don't, it was my understanding. I want to bring clarification, and then you can change if I'm wrong. There was a man that was being outspoken on the radio saying that I have information about Obama that's going to get him in prison for his life or for a long time. His car blew up, and he was working.
That was Michael Hastings.
Okay.
Michael Hastings. Yeah.
And it blew up that weekend. I think he was going to bring the information on Monday, if I remember right. And then his friend was poisoned, and then Tom Clancy, who was part of that group, they asked him to do a novel. He was allegedly poisoned, and then his coroner was committed suicide.
Okay.
Is that
You're actually
right?
bringing together a number of different stories, but let's straighten them out. You've got Andrew Breitbart, who was a journalist, a very outspoken journalist. He was working together with Tom Clancy, and they were getting information from Michael Hastings and feeding information back and forth. Tom was working on a novel that would expose the fact that this man, Obama, was a creation, a plant, in order to bring down America and make it subservient to Islam. So they had that, they had the details. I know it because I'm in 5 pages of that book, the one that never showed up. I've still got the 5 pages.
Wow.
Okay, I'm the only one with any piece of this book. And by the way, it is in safe hands and many copies everywhere. So I'm safeguarded in that.
Okay.
But the point is that Michael Hastings, he was killed when his Mercedes-Benz did not blow up as in a bomb. It blew up from a shoulder-fired missile that skipped right under the car. Yeah, that's how he died. In fact, it's interesting that almost immediately after they took away the wreckage, they were starting to get the road fixed where the hole was from the missile blast. Now, here's the other thing. You know that the tissue samples of somebody whose body is exploded, you could see the cellulose debris of an explosion, and that would mean the shoulder-fired missile, which could be then tagged to where it came from. In other words, if it was an Army provision, you would know it came from the Army. If it was Navy, wherever, you would know exactly who, where this thing was sourced. Well, within a day, within 24 hours, they cremated his body without the family giving any permission. So this is like covering over.
Yeah, I know. I know we don't have much time to get into this, so just touching on it. Bin Laden, they threw his body overboard before anybody had anything to say about it, and then the people who were the ones who captured him wound up dying in a helicopter accident crash. Is that right?
Extortion 17, yeah. The helicopter, Extortion 17, yeah.
Yeah. So, I haven't heard anybody ask, well, is he really dead? What's this about? There's something going on here.
He's really dead, but he didn't die the way they said.
Okay.
That's the point. Okay. And that's the whole point. And that's the craftiness of this whole thing. And by the way, if let's be really serious here. If it was my intention to kill you, you wouldn't live. Wouldn't matter what you did. You'd be dead.
Yeah.
I would find the way to do it. But that's because I was trained to do that kind of thing. That wasn't my thing, my specialty. But there are people out there whose specialty that is. That's what they do. They kill people. Yeah,
but they're supposed to do it to the enemy, not American citizens. We only have a few minutes left on this show, and you're going to be on a show every month. So we're going to the information we're not able to get right now, we'll get later. Real quick though, malls and ISIS coming into the United States. Can you tell what the agenda is so people know?
Well, what president in their right mind would allow one of the borders of the country that they represent to be absolutely unarmed, where in fact they're told, the people who are supposed to be protecting that border are told to stand back, stand by. And thousands of jihadis are moving in, not just Mexicans, not just South Americans, not Central Americans, but jihadis who've been flying in from Europe on 747s into Mexico City. And now they work with the drug cartels so that all their weapons are being brought in by the drug cartels, of course, who've paid off the police officials in order to make that happen. But now we've got ISIS is moving into the United States. There was a car, an SUV in Wyoming 2 weeks ago. It was stopped. You know, routine traffic stop, whatever it was, speeding, who knows. There were 4 shoulder-fired missiles in the back of the SUV. These guys were all Middle Eastern.
And there's an agenda right now. Your insiders have said that there is a plan to shoot malls, to have terrorism in malls throughout the United States.
Nairobi, Kenya was a test case.
It
was a very American mall. They went in there and slaughtered 150 people. It took 2 weeks for the troops to come in and finally slaughter all of the jihadis who were there. All of it was filmed by television cameras in the mall. So what was happening, the feed was going out and these jihadis were learning how to attack an American mall.
Okay.
That's what's coming.
Okay, and how do you know that? What's specifically what's coming? What's coming and when?
Sorry, we have a list of 103 malls that were also taken from that group who had the 4 shoulder-fired missiles.
Any malls in Oregon that you know of?
I can't say, but yes.
Okay, and do you know when, so people can avoid their shopping day?
No,
okay.
I don't know, but
this
we
year,
know that it'll be a date that'll be specific to Islam.
Okay, you know that?
Yes, we do, because that's their pattern. That's what they do.
Okay, this year, or next year, or the year after? Do you know what we're looking at?
I'm going to suggest it's going to be immediate, because right now the border is wide open. They know it. They're pouring in. They've got their arms and armament that they need.
Okay,
they're getting ready.
So you expect 2014?
I expect very soon.
Okay. We don't have a lot of time. In a half a minute or so, do you have any last words you want to say?
Well, let me say this. Who would ever have thought that the greatest danger America would be in was from the President of the United States, who's, ordered events and planning, and his process has been not to strengthen the safety and security of Americans, the country itself, the Republic, but to render it less than safe and to put us all in harm's way. Who would ever have thought we would see that day happening? That's where we're at.
Yeah.